One of the most interesting quarterbacks in college football over the last few years has been Austin Reed. Following in the footsteps of Bailey Zappi, Reed became a superstar quarterback for Western Kentucky and even led college football in 2022. While he did fall off a little bit in 2023, he still has a chance to make an NFL roster come this fall. Currently, he is with the Chicago Bears, and some are thinking that he could have a similar Cinderella story to Tyson Bagent. But why is nobody talking about Austin Reed? Well, today I am. He has one of the craziest stories ever, as he went from a zero-star quarterback recruit to a backup at Southern Illinois to then a national champion and an insane quarterback for North Florida in just 1 year. After that, he obviously went to Western Kentucky and balled out, and in today's video, we're going to talk about Austin Reed. We're going to talk about one of the craziest rookie quarterbacks in the country, go through his crazy journey, talk about his story and how all this happened, plus his chances with the Bears. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the insane rise of Austin Reed. In order to understand how Austin Reed got to this point, we first need to go back in time. Growing up in Florida, Austin always loved the game of football and excelled at the Pee Wee level, but there was one moment in grade school where he really found his future dream. 10 years before he got to the St. Augustine football field, he went to a game against their arch rival Nice. He said, quote, "I still remember how crowded it was, and that's when I fell in love with St. Augustine and wanted to be a St. Augustine high school football player. I always had a St. Augustine shirt, and I used to wear it everywhere, and that's the dream growing up there, to play for the Jackets." Eventually, he played quarterback at Sebastian Middle School and was eventually St. Augustine's JV starter as a freshman. That year, sophomore quarterback Cole Northrup was a second-year starter and would hold the job for 2 more years. Reed knew the job would not be his until he graduated, meaning he'd get one opportunity. While he was on the bench, he was known by the staff. His head coach said, quote, "Maybe he was an unknown to them, but we knew how good he was. We knew about the arm talent and he had a quick release. The unknown was how he'd respond to live competition though. He went out in the spring game and showed really quickly he was going to be something special." The wait was definitely long, but Austin Reed knew he was going to take advantage of his opportunity. He was going to make sure he was ready to play when his senior year came around. He said, quote, "This is the year I've been waiting for. The goal was to wait for my senior year and make the most of it." Now he definitely was. He stepped in during his senior campaign in 2017 and produced the greatest air show in school history. He passed for nearly 3,000 yards and a school record 34 touchdowns, and also led the Jackets to a 12-1 record in their first appearance in a state semifinal game since 2010. After the season was over, he finished 3rd in the statewide voting for the 6A Player of the Year, and he said, quote, "It's awesome. I've seen some really good people who've won it. Tim Tebow, Nathan Peterman, and Nick Tronti. It's really special to be on a list like that." 2 weeks into his first and only season as a varsity starter, he'd received his first full scholarship from Southern Illinois, a team that was in the FCS and actually pretty decent. He committed a couple weeks later after taking a visit there, and then he eventually made it official by signing with the Salukis. He was a diamond in the rough. His coach said, quote, "His football IQ is so high. Starting that first game was just like any other day. Most quarterbacks need a transition period, but Austin rolled right in and he took so many mental reps, he already knew what the outcomes would be." According to 24/7 Sports, Reed was a zero-star recruit, and essentially he had no future. But how would he do at Southern Illinois? Let's take a look. Reed obviously signed with the Salukis and spent a year there as a redshirt. Once he determined that he needed a fresh start though, he had to make a huge decision. He said, quote, "My conflicting thoughts were, do I want to go to another Division I school, or do I want to go to a JUCO or back to Division I later? Or did I want to go to a Division II school like West Florida?" He said he faced a difficult conflict and eventually chose the latter, meaning he would go over to West Florida. This was extremely improbable, as at the time he had just finished his final spring semester exam at Southern Illinois and then drove 600 miles from Carbondale to Mobile, and then the next morning he checked out of a hotel and did his visit at West Florida. He had never seen the campus or even made a stop in Pensacola, but he quickly fell in love. He said, quote, "The minute I stepped on campus and saw the facilities and met with the coaching staff, I felt like I was at a Division I school. Everything was just awesome, and that solidified everything. I felt like this would be a fun place to play." Little did he know, the coaches there also knew plenty about him. His high school coach said, quote, "Coach Deese at Florida knew about him and kind of tracked him before his senior year. And then boom, he just blew up, and it was like, oh, well he has multiple Division I offers, so we're not going to have a chance at him. That's why when his name came up in the portal, we were like, whoa, that guy is a guy we really liked, and we're looking for another quarterback, and it could not have turned out any better for us." Shortly after exchanging handshakes, Austin Reed called the coach back and told him he would transfer to the program. He explained that being from Florida and going so far from home to Southern Illinois, the homesickness was real, and he felt a desire to play at a place where he would be more comfortable, and this is why he would transfer. He said, quote, "I'm a Florida boy and I just wasn't happy. Football wasn't going well and I'm not one to jump ship, but once I'm unhappy playing football, I had to get out." And after being the second stringer in the first week, he eventually took over a couple possessions in and became the fourth different starting quarterback in West Florida's 4 seasons. 7 months and many sleepless nights removed from that career-altering decision, he then helped his team go all the way to the Division II National Championship, where they would play against Minnesota State. In his 1 year with the Argos, the team went 13-1, and he passed for 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns, and eventually they ended up going to the National Championship. He said, quote, "Because you never know when you're going to get back to this stage, I know I have to help take this team to a national championship." He became the most decorated and prolific passer in the short history of West Florida, and he decided to move on. He would decide to enter the 2022 transfer portal, and in the hours since joining the portal, he heard from 30 programs apparently, most of them lower Division I teams. He said he weighed on his decision to leave West Florida for a couple of months, but believed it was the next logical move in his career. Where would he end up going? Well, he entered the portal and decided to follow in the footsteps of Bailey Zappi. Zappi was a guy who played at the FCS level and then went up to Western Kentucky and then threw for more than 8,000 yards and 71 touchdowns before being drafted into the NFL to the New England Patriots, where he did get a couple of games. But Reed would have a little bit more competition. At the time, Jarrett Doege had just transferred in from West Virginia, and many thought that he would be the starting guy. Well, that is not what ended up happening. Doege would lose the job, Reed would win the job, and then Doege transferred to Troy, the fourth stop in his career. In Reed's first year as a starting quarterback for Western Kentucky, he would pretty much go insane from the get-go. In week 1, he would throw 4 touchdowns against Austin Peay, and then a couple weeks later, he'd almost lead them to an upset victory against Indiana with 3 touchdowns. He threw 5 more against Florida International, and then a couple weeks later against Charlotte, he threw 6. He was pretty much putting up huge numbers each and every game, and he would finish the 2022 regular season with a huge win against FAU, in which he had 4 total scores. He ended up leading them to the New Orleans Bowl, where he threw for nearly 500 yards and 5 touchdowns in a win over South Alabama. In total, he threw for 4,744 yards, with 40 touchdowns and 11 picks, plus 8 more scores on the ground. What's crazy is he had more yards than Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, and Drake May, 3 guys who went in the top 10 of this year's draft. Entering the offseason, there were plenty of rumors that he would spend his final year at a Power 5 school, and now all these Power 5 schools wanted him. He said, quote, "If these schools are interested, they'll find a way for you to know they're interested. But they said they wouldn't talk until I was in the transfer portal, so I felt it'd be a disservice to myself if I didn't at least enter and listen to what people had to say." Within the portal, Reed talked to numerous schools, and he was one of the best quarterbacks available, and apparently big money offers were thrown his way. That is how modern college football works. He did decide to stay at Western Kentucky for multiple reasons though, as he didn't want to learn a new system, and he thought he could make more money down the road by playing in that system. I mean, Western Kentucky has had 3 quarterbacks drafted since 2016, in Brandon Doughty, Mike White, and Bailey Zappi. Head coach Tyson Helton also coached Sam Darnold to the NFL, so there was a path for him. He put all those rumors to rest, and decided to return to Western Kentucky for the 2023 season. He was in an elite class for quarterbacks, and there was no reason to really expect a drop-off in 2023. He was going to get a chance to show off his skills against an exciting schedule, including games against one of the best Group of 5 teams in Troy, and then obviously at Ohio State. If he could put up big numbers in that game, or impress scouts, he could maybe make his way into the NFL quarterback conversation. Luckily, he'd have some help, as his big-time wide receiver Malachi Corley only had 1 offer coming out of high school, which was WKU, so they both decided to run it back. How would he do? Well, he did kind of fall off a bit in 2023, but to be fair, it's hard to put up those same kind of numbers again. He did have a hot start with 4 touchdowns against Houston Christian, and they also ended up beating USF, but he struggled a little bit against Ohio State, just throwing for 200 yards and 1 touchdown. He threw 4 touchdowns in a near upset over Liberty, and then also finished the year with 4 touchdowns against Florida International. That'd be the final game of his college career, and in total he threw for 3,300 yards with 31 touchdowns and 11 picks. He would now be headed off to the 2024 NFL Draft, and after playing just 1 season in high school and at 3 colleges during his career, he had a pretty crazy journey. He won a Division II championship, led all of college football in passing yards, and now is likely to go off to the NFL. He said, quote, "I said every time you put me on the field, I'm going to produce, and you're just going to have to deny me. St. Augustine, West Florida, Western Kentucky, I just produced. And that's the key. If you go out there and play ball, they can't really ignore you." According to NFL Mock Database, Reed was a projected undrafted free agent and the 281st overall prospect in this year's draft class. He said, quote, "Hopefully I can hear my name on day 3, and I expect to, but if I don't, that has been my career in general. I wouldn't be surprised if I went undrafted and have to earn my way onto a roster. It's one of those things where I hope to hear my name called, and if I don't, then it's time to compete." He would get multiple offers as an undrafted free agent though, and he eventually decided to sign with the Chicago Bears. Yes, the Bears got their new quarterback of the future in Caleb Williams after they took him number 1 overall, but there's a real shot that Austin Reed should be able to make the roster. Currently, Brett Rippon is back, and then they also have Tyson Bagent. While Bagent didn't start a couple games for them last year, I think Reed has a higher ceiling than both of them, and everyone knows that if Reed can just figure it out and understand a more complex NFL scheme, then maybe he has a real chance. Not saying in any sort of world that Austin Reed ends up becoming the guy, because they do have Caleb, but there also have been crazier things that have happened in the world of football. In 2022, the Bears found a hidden gem in Jack Sanborn, and last year was Tyson Bagent, so why couldn't it be Austin Reed in 2024? He's headed to Chicago with a long list of accolades, ridiculous production against FBS competition, and a throwback type of approach under center that could move the needle for the Bears staff. While it is a slim one, if he can outperform Bagent and warm up to the new offensive coordinator, then there's no reason why he might not be able to make that final 53-man roster, and at minimum, he will be on that practice squad, or maybe he plays well enough to get signed by another team. In my opinion, he was the best undrafted quarterback, an item higher than guys like Jason Bean, Sam Hartman, and Keaton Slovis, but that is just me. As I said, the Bears have a new offensive coordinator, and we'll see if Reed can pick up that scheme. The biggest knock on him as a quarterback is the level of competition, and the fact that he played in that air raid style, which doesn't exactly translate to the pros. We'll have to wait and see though, but Austin Reed's one of the craziest rookie quarterbacks. He had a crazy journey after starting 1 year in high school, being a 0-star recruit, playing just 1 year at Southern Illinois before winning a Division II national championship, and then lighting it up at WKU. We'll just have to wait and see what happens to him, but I am definitely rooting for him. But what do you guys think? If you're a Bears or a WKU fan, what do you think of Austin Reed? Does he have a chance to make it in the NFL? And what other players should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.